Thank you so much. We are live now, so I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to a BW dialogue with the one and only Mr. Harsh Mariwala. Today, we are going to talk to him about his book called Harsh Realities, The Making of Marico. It's been co-authored along with Mr. Ramsar, who really doesn't need an introduction to the audience that I'm talking to. Today, Mr. Mariwala will be talking about why he wrote this book, what's inside this book, why should you buy this book. As we speak, the book is available on all platforms, Amazon, and so on and so forth. So go ahead and buy it. I have a copy. Let me show the copy. It is a unique kind of a cover. Once you see it, you'll know it. Because of Zoom filters, it may not be fully visible. But maybe Mr. Mariwala can show it.
I can show it. This is the book.
Yes. So it's called Harsh Realities. As you can figure out, it is a play on his first name, and he talks about reality. So welcome, Mr. Mariwala. Congratulations. You've written a book. I hope you're not retiring, because most people write books when they want to retire and they can be honest. So give us a sense of why did you write this book now? You still have so many years ahead of you.
Of course, I will never retire. I am the kind of person who cannot just hang up my boots and do nothing. You have to be mentally occupied all your life until you are in the state of mind where you can be, you are fit enough to do so. So whether you run your own business or occupy in some other way, that's a different thing. And at every stage, at some stage in one's life, one has to ask, what am I doing in life? How do I reinvent myself? So 2 questions you asked. Why have I written the book? And what am I going to do? Or what have I done after stepping down as managing director of Marico? So whenever I've spoken at events, and I've been speaking a lot, every year I do at least one, every month I do 1 or 2 events, and people have come to me in normal times, physical events, where they've said they want to capture whatever your journey, there is so much to learn from. So I always had that at the back of my mind that at some stage I will try and write a book. And then I stepped down as managing director. I'm still the chairman. I'm involved in the company, but not full time. So I said, I may have some time. Let me try and attempt writing a book. And book writing is not an easy thing to do. It's very, very tough. And I have never had experience. So I went through my own learning curve in terms of, how should the chapters read? Should it be historical kind of perspective? And then I was fortunate to rope in Ramcharan, and then he helped me structure the book properly. And then I was still not happy. The book was written by one of my ex-HR heads. It was good from a business point of view, but it was a typical business book, and I didn't want that to happen. I wanted the book in a story format. I wanted the book to have emotional content. I wanted the book to have many more anecdotes. So what ultimately emerged was that in pandemic, I had a lot of time. We were sitting at home. My wife writes very well, but she has never written a book, and forget a business book, which is still difficult. So she went through whatever was written, word by word, and we improvised on that. She made me add a lot of anecdotes, stories, my failures, my learnings, and also improved upon the language to make it far more interesting. So I think what has emerged is very different than what was there before the pandemic. She brought in emotions and episodes, circumstantial episodes. She did research to some other family members, my uncles and not. And this would not have been what it is today, but for our involvement, because it would have been a very dry and factual, typical business book. But this is not a typical business book. It's a book in a story format where it's easy reading. But at the same time, because of Professor Ramcharan's inputs and his insights, which are there at the end of each chapter, there is a lot of take-home value. So very easy reading with a lot of take-home value. That's how I would put it. And all I can say is I'm very proud to say that she has done an exceptional job. And I hope that whatever work she has done, it reflects in not only in terms of number of copies, but also in terms of feedback from readers. Whoever I've given the book to have been very, very happy. And initially, some of the initial reviews which have happened on Amazon, at least 2 days back, I saw 5 reviews, all of them 5-star. So it looks like it's getting good traction. And I hope that it will continue to excel over a period of time. I want to make a big impact. So that's where I am,
Thank you, Mr. Mariwala. I've read the book, so I would recommend it to everyone. And you just gave us the reason why you wrote the book, and clearly you're not retiring. You're actively involved with the company, of course, at a strategy and at a leadership level.
Yeah.
There's a professional managing director, Saugata Gupta, who runs it. Now, right up front, you write about the fact that flipping through the pages of my life, I came across many colors, many textures, harsh
Yes.
realities, challenges, and rewards.
Yeah.
And the binding behind all these things is transparency. That is the very basis of your life.
Yes.
And you go on to say that you should judge a book by its cover.
Yes.
In your case, it's a unique and transparent cover. It
Yes.
conveys the dual sense of the titles. Give us the thought process on the title of the book, the kind of cover you've done, and the kind of production.
So I was really charged after the book was so well written at the end of pandemic. And I said, now we have to go all the way in terms of finding the right title and also have the right cover. So we engaged our Ascent members, who we have 600 entrepreneurs at Ascent, and we threw it open to the members to suggest a name, which would, and many of them know me. And we got this suggestion from an Ascent member. So the name has come from an Ascent member based on some exploration I was doing with those members who are good at suggesting names. But I must say the feedback on the name has been amazing. People love the name. It's a pun on my name, and I'm also very happy. So that's one. And then when it came to finalizing cover design, we said that we must go to some specialist who would go much more in detail than normally. The tendency is to go to the publisher and ask them for cover design, or to show my picture or co-author's picture and just have something else written on top. But here we wanted something to convey what was inside the book, and I think it had to convey also me in terms of my personality, my traits. So the person who designed the book, she came with she read the book and she gave us multiple suggestions, and I took a long time to finalize the cover. But net, I think that's worked out very well because it is showing transparency, which I am. It's showing innovation, which is also one of my passions. And it's also showing simplicity at one level because it is very simple. It's very minimalistic, the cover, compared to many other covers who have pictures of the authors on top or something else, some other picture. So it's just black and white in terms of colors. And I think that's what is making it different. And it is giving a message. So the whole thing is a package, whether it's the cover or it's the name of the book, and of course the contents of the book. And each one has to signify and reinforce each other. But you're on mute. Anurag, you're on mute.
I said I've enjoyed reading the book and I'd recommend, but let me move into the chapters. The book has 21 chapters. Which is your favorite and why?
Difficult to identify a favorite, but some of the chapters which may have very good impact on which people may find interesting is the war with levers on the battle and we winning in the battle. How do you professionalize a family managed company, and culture building is something very unique, which many entrepreneurs and even companies which have been there for many years, professionally run companies, they have not given that much attention to culture and values. And how we went about doing is, I think there is a lot of learning in that. I think the overall, how do you create market leaders? Because most products we are market leaders in their segment. So how do you select your portfolio of products is very dear to me. And finally, the purpose of the organization. The purpose of the organization is to look at all the stakeholders and not just shareholders. So what can each organization do to add value to each stakeholder, because they are interconnected and they add value to each other. I also like that chapter very much. So I would say these are some of the chapters. And initially, how did I convert from a family manager, the family dynamics, and how to me that also was a very important chapter, especially for those who are part of a family run business. I think how do you manage family at one level and business at another level? I think there is a lot of learning, and that's also quite interesting.
Fantastic. Now let me move into the chapters itself. Now you write upfront said how you collaborate with Ramcharan, but how did the idea of collaboration come with Ramcharan, and what is the level of Ramcharan's involvement?
So the idea came from somebody I know, I respect. We were just discussing my frustrations with the book, and I was not able to progress. And before that, I engaged one or two other authors who I'd engaged, and again, I spent a lot of time with them. I was not happy, so just out of just sheer frustration, I was talking to him. He also knows Ramsar. His name is Mr. Dikshit, Tattwamasi Dikshit. So he suggested, why don't you approach Ram? You know him well. And I was a little hesitant, but I said, no, asking him because he knows me well. He respects me. We have a very good equation. So I asked him immediately at the spur of the moment. He said yes, without going into details. And then I spent, in terms of his time involvement, in terms of structuring the book, I spent about 2 full days with him in US. I went there just for the book. And then I think after each chapter, I would send it to him. He came to India maybe 2 or 3, 4 days, full days he spent on the book. He read the chapters and he gave his inputs in terms of his insights on each chapter. So his involvement, I would say, would be in terms of time spent about 6 to 7 working days. Based on whatever was written, he gave his insights and he helped me structure the book. But it's invaluable is the way he's captured his insights. And on the spur of the moment, you read and just you rattle off his insights. It's amazing for him to just identify what was working, what was not working, what was unique about me is absolutely amazing.
Good. Now, you say the 27th January is the day the tide turned.
Yes.
Right? Share the story with the readers and the viewers.
So I think that's the time when we decided to say that the consumer products business of Bombay Oil Industries would be demerged from Bombay Oil Industries and formed into a different company, Marico. And I think that just opened up a lot of frustrations I was having within Bombay Oil Industries in building that business. And all of a sudden, I was like let loose to do things which I always wanted to do, but I was prevented from doing so. And these would be in the area of office location, in a far better office location as against Masjid Bandar in India, in Bombay. Also to select my own team, which will not have any dual reporting, to convert the company from a completely family managed to a professionally managed company, to ensure that the allocation of resources, whatever money we made, would come back to us. And I think overall create an image of the company. At that time, we didn't have any plans of going public, but to have an impact in the job market, create very good talent, build a strong culture. So multiple benefits. To me, that has been the most important decision in my journey. If I had not been able to pull it off with the family, I would have been struggling managing the family dynamics in a joint family business, which had multiple businesses within one company. And it was many family members were actively involved in managing that company.
Thank you so much. As most people know that this is the 3rd generation and now the 4th generation of Mariwala family will come into play at some stage. Now, in the chapter, which is the inaugural chapter, the chapter 1, you talk about the Mariwala roots, right?
Yeah.
Take us through the Mariwala roots for our viewers and readers. Give us a sense of the Mariwala roots. And you talk about how 2 brothers came from Kutch to Mumbai and so on and so forth.
So we are talking of my grandfather and great-granduncle, and they came from Kutch to Mumbai, and then they were stitching gunny bags. And very, very, very mere kind of hardly any business. And then from that, it led to establishing a business in black pepper and copra, mainly out of Kerala, and exporting black pepper and dealing in copra. So going into commodities like copra and black pepper. So I think that was the trading business started by my grandfather and my great-granduncle. And from there, my father entered being the eldest in the next generation, and he was the one who converted the company's trading business to manufacturing business. So going into edible oils, but bulk unbranded, going into chemicals, oleochemicals, going into spice extracts, which were imported. So he is the one who put up 4 factories, 3 in Bombay, 1 in Kerala. So he led the transition from trading to manufacturing. And what I did was from unbranded to branded into FMCG. So that's the transition I brought about when I joined the business. So I think with every generation, there has been a transition in terms of what business we are doing and what we are doing now.
Okay. Now let me move into the chapters that took you onto the journey of making Marico what it is and who you are. When you were writing this book, see, one of the things that you want to be is to be authentic about what happened.
Yes.
There are also photographs in the book. For example, your grandfather's photo and so on, and your family member's photo. And tell me, when you rate your book on authenticity, and you right up front talk about transparency, were you happy in terms of sharing the uncomfortable details, some of which you shared in terms of decision making? How do you think it fares on the authenticity text?
Sharing it in the book, you're saying?
Yes.
I think by and large, I have shared. I may not have shared some names at some stage if it is going to cause some, shall I say, impact on the relationship. But that's okay. I think the reader doesn't know. They don't have to know the exact name. I think the key thing, what is the message in that story, which is more important. And let's not be too, shall I say, gossipy in trying to find out what name I'm talking of. I think the key thing is how do you resolve such issues, whether it is some talent at the top level, which has not.
There is a separate chapter on talent itself.
Yes, absolutely. So I think by and large, I have been very transparent. If at all, I have not, and I don't think it is required also from the reader's point of view to go into each and every detail in terms of who was that person whom I had to deal with a certain issue.
Mr. Mariwala, when people write a book, they dedicate it to their father, their grandfather, their wife, sometimes their companion, sometimes their investors. You dedicate the book to all the entrepreneurs who are creating economic prosperity for the country and for all the stakeholders.
Yes.
What do you think are the harsh realities that entrepreneurs in India have to face?
So I think in the earlier days, the license Raj and going to Delhi, and some entrepreneurs thrived, but many others were not able to make the best out of it because they were not capable of handling the license Raj and corruption to deal with it. So I think all that is now reduced dramatically. So the ease of doing business is very, very key for the entrepreneurship journey to thrive. I also think that we need to create an ecosystem of entrepreneurs so that more and more entrepreneurs join. We are seeing definitely a movement with the establishment and valuations of unicorns, hubs like Bangalore and some other hubs which are doing well in IT, leveraging technology. So you can't do this overnight, but I think it's a matter of time. Indian entrepreneurs will actually take bigger steps, bolder steps, which will benefit the country a lot, because I think government can go up to a certain extent. They can't drive growth. They can create an environment of growth. And ultimately that initiative has to be taken by entrepreneurs. If we have a very robust entrepreneurial system in the country, then many of our issues will get addressed, whether it's poverty or job creation. So it's very important to have more entrepreneurs who would play such a stellar role in creating the future of this country, a rosy future and a very high growth rate, which will make us stand out in the international field.
Okay, now let me dive into the book.
Yeah.
I want to writing a book can be very cathartic, right? It is, you're reliving old memories, you're reliving some of the situation you've gone through. And I was reading this particular chapter which gets me to ask you this question is, you talk about the Bombay oil industries, and you right after talk about how you hived off the current Marico into an independent venture and have grown it. And give us a sense of what all businesses were Bombay oil industries. And the fourth chapter is, you talk about yourself and you talk about your third generation, so to say, right?
Yeah.
Can you weave both these chapters into the conversation for the benefit of our viewers and readers?
So your first question was, what else was Bombay Oil doing in terms of different businesses? Is that right?
That's right.
So the Bombay Oil had three different businesses. We turned them into profit centers over a period of time. We had a chemicals business because my father started in oils, and from oils we made chemicals. So these were oleochemicals, catering to industries like rubber industry, paint industry, and a whole variety of industries we were catering. But this is manufacturing based, and one had to do a B2B selling. And then we had a export business, which was spice extract. So instead of exporting spices to processed food industry internationally, these were extracts from spices like black pepper. Instead of from 10 kilo, you'll make 1 kilo of extract. which is known as oleoresinose spices, so that you save on freight costs. It's far more hygienic to transport. So that was a completely different business, again catering fully to export, because there was no market for oleoresins in India. So we had one export-oriented oleoresin business, we had a chemicals business, and the third was the edible oil business, which was mainly selling it to bulk industries and to the trade in terms of barrels or big tins. So very little, minuscule portion of the total business going into branded. And then my father had three brothers, and then each of them, so totally we were 8 cousins, and I'm the eldest again amongst the third generation. So then my cousins started joining business, and then at one point we were like 8 cousins in the business. 1 or 2 didn't join, but 5 or 6 cousins in the business. And I mean, it was so many family members, and this whole transition in terms of moving into Marico from Bombay Oil was based on interactions with my cousins, because each one wanted to have a certain degree of freedom in terms of doing things and building their own business. So we were able to work out a plan together with the cousins, and then we had to convince the elders. So there was the youngster group, which we conceptualized the whole plan of demerging Bombay Oil into 3 different companies, and each one headed by a younger family member, either me or my cousin. And we went to the elders in terms of, okay, give us this freedom, and then to that extent, your role will get reduced on a day-to-day basis. So I think this is the approach we use to bring in that change.
Good. Now, I read the book, so I know what you're talking of. Now, the 5th chapter is building the consumer brand. Marico is a huge consumer brand, and it stands for all the things you talk about in the book. Can you take the readers and viewers through how did you build this consumer brand called Marico? What were the baby steps?
So I'll take 1 hour to explain that, but very quickly, I reckon that I'll have to cover that within 3-4 minutes. So basically, initially we started off with Parachute and Saffola, and went through distribution, expansion, gained some market share, but ultimately innovation played a very important role in making Parachute a very, very strong brand. From virtually a 0% market share, we went to a 50% market share in Parachute, but mainly because of innovation and turning the whole market from tin to plastic, and multiple innovations in plastics. And then built Saffola, basically positioning the oil for good for the heart. So what we call in the segment of premium edible oils. And then we went on expanding, went to hair oil, we went on to foods, went international, we made some acquisition in India, outside India. So I think, but we have been very focused. We are saying that our business is in beauty and wellness, and we have to be in these 2 areas, and we should not try and expand beyond these 2 areas. And growth to us is very important, because organizations have to grow, businesses have to grow. If the business doesn't grow, then it's not good for any business. Because growth is like oxygen. I think it impacts positively all the stakeholders, whether it's employees or associates or shareholders. So try to build a company which is very strong on ethics, compliances, and growth driven, and at the same time being focused in beauty and wellness, and also be a market leader in whatever you do, because market leadership gives you an edge in terms of better profitability, you get economies of scale. And I think that's the philosophy of which the whole company has been built.
Fantastic. Now, again, I've read the book, and when you say it, it's different than me saying it. What's the most interesting anecdote in the book as per you, Mr. Mariwala? A story that you were not sure you should tell or how you should tell. I'll come to 1 or 2 of mine, but I want to ask you.
I think whenever I've spoken, at least two anecdotes which stand out, or 2 stories. Anecdotes it's a small incident, but story. This is over a period of maybe few years. 3, I would say. How do you disentangle from the family in terms of starting a new company? Number 2, how do you build a culture which is very, very crucial for success in a business? Number 3, how do you use innovation to drive growth, which happened in case of Parachute, from conversion from tin to plastic? And number 4, how do you fight international player in FMCG and take them on without fearing them by taking the right steps? I would say these 4. And finally, I would say that the purpose of the organization is very important, and the role of promoters. I think promoters have a certain role to play, and at some stage, every person, every promoter has to realize what they're meant for, and how do you reinvent yourself in terms of doing something new.
Fantastic. Now let me jump into the other chapters. You always talk about a shared vision. You always talk of a unique culture in Marico, and you built that, right? You built that. So give us a sense of what's in this chapter called a shared vision, a unique culture.
So culture is very crucial. I wanted to create a culture which was very innovative, because innovation played a very important role in my journey initially, and in a highly competitive business environment, me too products will not succeed. And innovation has to be on a perpetual basis, not only for new products, but for an existing product also. So I was very clear that innovation has played an important role. It has to play an important role perpetually. And that can only happen if you create a culture which is innovative. So how do you create an innovative culture? I'll just give you an example. We said that, first of all, we need to attract best quality talent. So we went back to the campuses and the job market, created an employee value proposition which would attract people to us. In our case, we said that we are a highly empowering company. Number two, we will go with a very flat structure, number of layers in the organization will be very few. So that people are forced to delegate and empower people down the line. But that you can only combine if you have very good talent. Number three, we will have a culture which is very open, which is very transparent, and which is boundarylessness, because innovation doesn't happen in an R&D lab. I may get an idea, I'll discuss with you, and you will discuss with somebody else, and that's how the idea develops into something else compared to what you had in mind. So it needs a lot of cross-functional dialogue. So we wanted a culture which was open, transparent, and that made it happen. But that's not enough. Then you say that, okay, how do you encourage people to take risks? Because if people are afraid of failure, then they will not take risks. So we said that you should not have any fear of failure, and it's okay to experiment. It's okay to do something new. And the organization's role at that time, if it doesn't succeed, is not to punish you. The moment I punish somebody who has taken a risk in terms of not giving an increment or not promoting that person, even if that person is worthy of promotion, then you are passing a very strong message in the organization that failure is not tolerated, and failure is punished. So failure cannot be punished if it is an intelligent failure. And then you have to go on encouraging people to experiment, de-risk by doing prototyping on a small scale, have innovation awards which get reinforced through innovation. The top management behavior should be to encourage innovation, have innovation facilitators within the organization. So a whole host of initiatives culturally which will drive innovation on a perpetual basis, and not just in product management or product development, but across the organization, also including factories.
Absolutely fantastic. And, you pretty much put that into action, and you only articulated that in the chapter. So clearly it's visible to a lot of people what you've done, especially people who interacted with you over the years. Now, we talk of, no journey can be without its trials and tribulations. And you talk of agony and ecstasy, the Mariwala family separation.
Yeah.
And family settlements and separations always have some dynamics which can be painful. You have to make it as less painful as you can. Take us through this chapter.
So there was a difference of opinion, and that led to a situation where we didn't see ourselves continuing working with each other. I think if there's a fracture there, so we said that let's separate. But that whole process of separation can be painful, because we are in a joint family. There are multiple assets, there are multiple businesses, and then there are 4 families in our case. So how do you divide that? Who will manage what? And then how does it become equitable? How do you value each company? So the process of separation itself was painful because of difference of opinion, and ultimately, it's a break in terms of whatever you're doing and what you'll do in future. So, but it took 2 to 3 years, and it was quite stressful at that time. But post that, I think it's been, at that time the relations may have got punctured a little bit, but now all that is behind us, and we are back as a family which interacts with each other, and so there's all the ill feelings which were existed at that time has reduced dramatically, I would say.
Absolutely. Now, post that, you have written a chapter 12, which is organization for growth, how you created growth at Marico, how future became about growth. So give us a sense of that. In post that, you have written a chapter called Angels and Predators, which my is my favorite chapter in the book. So I want you to talk about these two chapters.
So the first one, sorry, which one was the first? Angel Predator is about the levers, right?
Yes.
And
And before that is organizing for growth.
So I think we went through our own learning in terms of our organization structure, and we made some mistakes in terms of changing the structure, looking at some people's aspirations, and that didn't work out well. So we had to change our organization structure. Separately, I think I have had many failures and many mistakes and setbacks in my own journey, but the good thing is, out of each one there has been learning, and I think I've captured all that in the book, and I've very transparently talked about why and what have been the failures, and what has been the result of those failures in terms of improvements we brought about, whether it's a new product failure or new business failure or organizational structure failure or some other competency which we didn't invest in. So I think that's what we went through in terms of the organizational structure and changes and the failures and what are the learnings out of it. And the second one is about angels and predators, which I talked about fighting a bigger giant when you're gone public and you are being watched by others, and the analysts are also asking, why don't you sell out? I mean, you'll benefit a lot. So it's not money which attracts me. I think you need to create a stamp in terms of what you are leaving behind in terms of a business or legacy. And I've always thought that is more important in that journey. If there is a risk involved, I will take that risk. So that was my mindset that, okay, we will take them on. We have a strong brand. And for me, it's everything. For the larger player, it's one amongst many. So we'll be able to give all our attention. They may not be able to do so. And we are strong in terms of whatever we're doing. So I think that decision to take them on was very sound. I never wavered. I did a lot of deliberative inquiry. Whether I went to Ahmedabad to meet Karsanbhai Patel because they were also fighting the competition from levers, or Ramsar, who told me that you have to protect your resource generating engine. So, but I was very firm that, and that just reinforced my belief that we will not sell it out. We will take them on. And I think that's very well covered in the book. It's very interesting. I don't want to give the complete story because then I'll be the reader. I should keep something in suspense for the reader also.
Thank you so much. They say the best view comes from after the hardest climb. In some way, you've been able to climb to the peak and you're looking at a great view. Look at where Marico is. So your decision to grow Marico has proved to be the right decision. Now, of course, the 14th chapter is building new growth engines in India. Then you write about building growth engines overseas. But again, I want you to talk about your journey of listing your company, going to the capital markets. That's the chapter 16, where you talk about brand Marico being on the capital markets.
Yeah. So it came out of a certain need because I had to raise resources because of the family separation. I had bought stakes of some other families and I had to pay that. So that forced me to go public. And going public and being public is very different compared to being a private company. You are far more new, you have quarterly pressures, you have analyst meets, but it has its own benefits also in terms of the image, the attraction of talent. So net, I have never regretted going public. It also means extra time to be given to all the stakeholders. It's a good, otherwise not being watched by others, sometimes you can be a little bit inside out. So it gives you that outside in terms of what the others expect out of you. And as I said, we went public out of compulsion, but very easily we were able to transit into a public company, and we were able to. The bigger challenge for us at that time was we were perceived as a commodity company, and it was not perceived as a branded FMCG company. So when we went public at a multiple of price to earning multiple of about 12 or 13, and it went after that. We had this war with viewers where our multiple went down to 8. But then we said that we have to go more value-added businesses. We have to show far more consistent results. And we did a lot of We took a lot of initiatives with our shareholding community, analyst meets, analyst updates, and consistent results, more value-added products launched. And I think that changed the perception from being a branded commodity company to a FMCG player, and I think that has been a big transition, because then the multiple just went up from 12, 13 to, I don't know, to today maybe 40, 45 multiple. So now we are in the line of other FMCG companies, So gaining that respect from outside also is backed by a lot of initiatives and actions we took consciously to go there. And I think that's been quite rewarding.
Thank you so much. Of course, you cannot do it without good governance. Good governance comes from having a strong board. And you devoted a full chapter to governance and how you built the board. Take us through how did you select the board members and what's in the chapter?
So to me, a board is a source of competitive advantage. The board has to contribute to the company, because the board also takes a lot of energy out of the system in terms of preparing the board meeting. So I strongly believe that the board's role is to critique strategy, not finalize the strategy, and add a lot of value. And one of the biggest roles for the board is to help CEO perform better, So whether it's through mentoring, whatever thing, CEO has to learn a lot from the board. So what we do is we identify what are the competencies required of the board in terms of independent directors, and we man that competence, fit that gap with an individual who we think will play a very important role, So we, for example, identified competencies, FMCG expert as one board member, retail expert or retail specialist second. Digital thing came in recently, so we said we should have digital. We want somebody with finance background. We want somebody with HR background. So our board has these competencies, and then individual would fit into that competency. And then over a period of time, that person would leave, a new person would come in, but that new person would also have a similar kind of competency profile, So normally the tendency among the other promoters is to identify an individual and say, okay, he's a nice guy, he's good, so let me put him on board. But I think we have looked at it differently. We said that let's identify competency and who is the best person to fill that gap. And then spend a lot of time in improving board effectiveness, studying best practices among other boards. How do you drive board chemistry? What do you get discussed, the board agenda, the board value addition, feedback given by board. So this chapter may not be relevant for some entrepreneurs who are not running a company.
Listed entity.
Or even private company, they can do it. But I thought we had done some unique work for which we also got award, the best board. We were there in the best board award list. There would be a lot of value addition to companies which are listed or those who are even unlisted in terms of how should the board function, how can it add value to the company?
Absolutely. Now, succession can again be very disruptive sometimes, if I may use the word. You have a chapter dedicated to how did you seed succession, how did you see through, and take us through that chapter of how you seeded succession.
So I told you earlier that I want to create a company which has perpetuity. For example, the company should go on even if I'm not there tomorrow. So to that extent, the board plays a very important role in we have a very well-defined values and culture. We also have a strategy document which gets reviewed every year. And then we have a purpose of the organization. And the board also plays a very important role in selecting CXO and CEO. So in this case, I was at some stage I had to retire and move on. So we had an internal candidate who came to me saying that, can I go in that position and discuss that with the board? And we finalized that it is in the interest of the company for him to take over from me, and that I should step down as managing director and become chairman. It will also smoothen the wave in terms of succession planning. It will send the right message in the capital markets, which it did. And in India, I think it's expected that the children will take over from the father. It's very hierarchical society. So we deviated from there. And I think the key thing was we decided that we should decide or we should take a decision which is good for the company first.
Yeah. Once you someone reads the chapter, they'll know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Now, in my various conversations with you, I first met you 7 years back. You always talk about purpose behind profit. And it's not something that you talk about whether it's the work in Marico, in the Marico Foundation, you always try to make purpose
Yes.
your driving.
Yes.
Give us an insight into this chapter.
So no, I was influenced by a book which I read, and the Forms of Endearment, which is written by Raj Sisodi and Jagdish Sheth, and they have done a research in US about companies which have looked at all the stakeholders and not just shareholders, and conclusively proving that companies which have looked at all the stakeholders are doing much better financially than those companies which have only looked at a certain stakeholder, whether it is some key employees or shareholders. And that all the stakeholders are interrelated. If I do something well for my own employees, they will perform well. That will have a positive impact on the company's results, and the other stakeholders will benefit. If I do something for my associates, they will also feel good and they will give their best, whether it's advertising agency or a CNF agent or packaging vendor or subcontractor. So the key thing is to look at all stakeholders because they are interconnected and they're adding value to each other, and go that extra mile and making them far more effective. For example, many of our key associates, we sponsor them to training program at our cost. It could be 5-6 day training program. And we are giving a signal that we care about you and we want you to improve. We want to our vendors' factories and trying to improve them in a situation like improving productivity or sustainable issues, or even in pandemic when they needed some cash flows, we went and gave it to them. So the key thing is to work with them as partners and go on adding value to them. I think that's what enriches the company. Our own employees, we have to walk that extra mile and making them very happy in the organization, making the goals which are value adding, so they also feel very good. So I think purpose to us is to make a difference, to all the stakeholders, and that's what which we've been doing for the last 10 years, and I think it has had a positive effect on all our stakeholders, and it's a very good feel-good factor amongst all of us.
Absolutely. For many years, we've been talking about CSR, corporate social responsibility. You dedicate a chapter to personal social responsibility. For our viewers and readers, define what is personal social responsibility and give an example from the chapter.
Yeah, so personal social responsibility is something which I'm doing from my personal funds and not company's fund, which is the corporate social responsibility. So this is funded by me from an individual, or me and my family, let's put it that way. And I strongly believe in active giving, which means that if I'm giving something, I don't want to just donate money to a school or a hospital or something. I want to actively participate, which means that I don't mind giving 10-15% of my time in that active giving. And I have to be passionate about it, because if I have to be active, I should love that subject and I should be able to add value to that. So we are working primarily on two causes. One is entrepreneurs through Ascent, which is ascentfoundation.in. And number two, to mental health, which we've been doing for the last 8 years. And we've done some stellar work in that area through Mariwala Health Initiative. So we spend, apart from spending money on both these initiatives, we also go involve ourselves, get other people who I think can help in roping them in to help organizations who are doing work, for example, in the area of mental health, to improve their performance, to add value to them. So it's just not giving grants, but it goes beyond giving grants to making a difference to them in terms of their capability, their competencies, so that they do well and they are also able to scale up.
The harsh realities become soft at the end of the book. You talk about your milestones and maxims,
yes,
and you share about the emotions. So let me take you into one theme that has come across all our conversations. Again, is taking risk. You just talked about it. And in the book, you talk about, win some, lose some is a common saying. However, I say sometimes you win, but you never lose. You always learn. And then you quote below from your favorite verses, which I'd let you say, to laugh is to risk appearing the fool. Why don't you?
I don't. Yeah, 1 minute.
It's page 202. It's page 202 of your book.
It's one of my favorite poems. It's lovely. Yes. It's a fantastic poem.
It's page 202.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. So I'll read the poem. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach for another is to risk involvement. To expose your ideas, your dreams before a crowd is to risk their loss. To love is to risk to not being loved in return. To live is to risk dying. To believe is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. But risks must be taken because the greatest hazard in life is to risk nothing. The people who risk nothing, do nothing, have nothing, are nothing.
Absolutely. And then you talk about evolving your vision. Give us a sense, because I think these are the philosophical things. As I said, the book is called Harsh Realities or Harsh Reality, whichever way you want to look at it, but it becomes soft at the end. And you talk about reinventing yourself, and in
Yes.
some way you have.
Yes.
So give us a sense of how is that possible.
So I think a lot depends on what you are good at and how much time do you have. And I can't sit at home. I have to work all the time. I have to be mentally occupied. So I was very clear that I'm going to do things which I have not been able to do when I was working full time. So it starts with, okay, what all things you are good at and what you want to do. And some things when you are in that journey fall into your lap. So today I do, apart from giving on my personal social responsibility, we set up 2 new businesses. One my son is looking at, one other business which I set up. I'm on board of private equity companies. I have 3 external statutory boards plus 3 of my own boards. I've written the book, so I speak a lot. So I do a variety of things which I enjoy doing, which I was not able to do earlier. But I think ultimately it has to fit into what are your strengths, what you enjoy doing, and I think go on experimenting. Sometimes something may not work out well, but from that failure you learn something, and shift your gears and do something else.
Absolutely. I want to ask you my last question. Now, what do you expect a reader to experience once he's read the book? What is the kind of impact you're looking at? Of course, it can be very individualistic. What you take away from the book depends on your own focus. Where are you in your life's journey? But what is the impact you're hoping to make on a reader?
Basically, it's an account of my own journey, my successes, my failures, and peppered with nuggets of wisdom from Professor Ramsar. And it talks about building a consumer brand, different processes, whether it's culture building, public company, board management, innovation. And I think there are lots and lots of learnings. Now, each person may not get all the learning. If you're a private company or if you're a unlisted company, you may not get learning out of the board. But I can assure you that there will be some take-home value for any reader, whether that person is an entrepreneur, that person is a professional or a student. There will definitely, I can bet that the book will have some new insights, new learnings, which can be relevant to them in their journey. And I think all that is done in a very interesting and a narrative manner, which is not dry, but which is very involving, which is emotional, which is anecdotal. So I think that's what I feel that the book does. And this is not just my own feeling. It's based on whoever I've given the book to. And they all felt that this is the way the book is captured. I spent few days discussing the book with Anil Darkar, who unfortunately passed away. And he gave me some suggestions which I got incorporated into the book also. But he also had a similar feeling in terms of how, because he himself has written book, he does all this lit festival and whatnot. So he's an expert on books. And I think he also felt that the book was doing this in terms of these are the messages which are coming out of the book.
As I said, I want to end by talking about grit. And in between, you say you started a pioneering business opportunity, which is about the use of water treatment in physiotherapy. And
Yes.
you talk about grit. And to me, grit is the most important. And you define grit as passion plus perseverance plus determination. And you call it an imperative for success. Why don't you build on this, Mr. Mariwala?
So I think every person in this world has setbacks. There is not a single person in the world who has not had setbacks in life, because if you take some risk, if you take some initiative, you're about to fail. Every time you're not going to succeed. But out of every failure, there's a learning. And if you have passion about something, many people give up that. Okay, I failed, so let me just give up and do something else. But if you have passion, which is combined with determination, perseverance, you will learn from that failure, try and incorporate that learning in your next step and try and achieve. So don't give up very easily if you think that there is a future in whatever you were aspiring to do. You have to go on trying, and that can only come out of grit and not just passion. So they say passion is important. To me, passion has to be combined with determination, perseverance, and which will turn into grit, which is far more important than passion.
Fantastic. And give us a sense of this pioneering new business opportunity of water therapy leading to, improvement in physiotherapy.
So we have the name of the company is Aquacentric. We have 2 facilities in Bombay, one in Worli and one in Andheri. And we have 4 different verticals. We have ortho, we have neuro, we have children's health, and we have women's health. And we have specialists after each. And the belief is that internationally there are many aquacentric centers to overcome injuries from these, because it's very easy to exercise in water. Your weight in water is 1/10 the weight on land. And if you are not able to exercise either because you're overweight or because you are part paralyzed, then your recovery will not be faster. So because it is so easy to exercise in water, people are able to exercise, and that is leading to much faster recovery from all these issues, And I think we have set up a world-class facility, warm water, very hygienic. So it's having a fantastic impact on the health of individuals who are suffering from these areas. You can go there also and enroll yourself in terms of health improvement. It's fun to exercise in water. We have inbuilt treadmills, cycles. So there are lots and lots of innovative ways to exercise. We have all those water, we have those equipments where you can actually do weights in water and things like that. These are rubber equipments, but because of the water resistance, actually you feel like you're doing weightlifting. So it's very interesting, very good results. Unfortunately, in the pandemic, we had to close down these 2 centers because of the restrictions imposed. But so last 1.5 years, we had some impact, but now hopefully things will be much better. But I'm quite hopeful that this is something which will have a very positive impact on people's lives.
Thank you, Mr. Mariwala, for being who you are, for writing this book. We wish you luck, and I'd like you to hold the book again so that our viewers can see it. It's called Harsh Reality or Harsh Reality. That's Mr. Mariwala's first name. And it is a unique cover, I promise you. Of course, what's inside is very authentic and mirrors the journey Mr. Mariwala had. I recommend it to all our readers. Harsh Reality is the making of Marico, a book co-authored by Mr. Harsh Mariwala with Ramsar. We wish you luck, and I hope you end the book by, again talking a few words, which are words, but they're very, very meaningful. You talk about openness and transparency. You talk about being boundaryless. You talk about trust, empower, focus, risk-taking, grit, purpose, perpetuity, reinventing, and most important, making a difference. So I'm sure this big book will make a difference. It will make an impact, and we wish you luck in sharing your experiences so that other people can be inspired and learn from them. Thank you so much. For those of you who missed the complete conversation, you can watch it on the YouTube channel of BW Business World, or read a book review and an abridged version of the conversation in the next issue of BW Business World, or read a detailed transcript on businessworld.in. Thank you so much, Mr. Mariwala, for talking to BW Business World. It's my pleasure, and I'm sure the book will have the right impact. And you talk about intention somewhere in the book. So it's been written with an intention to share experiences for people to benefit. I'm sure they'll benefit from it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mariwala. Thank you.